Welcome to Adobe Illustrator CC 2021, Classroom in a Book, Chapter 1, Getting to Know the Work Area. This is one of those lessons where we're going to spend a lot of time learning about the space, but not necessarily doing as much with the programs themselves. So we're going to go ahead and go into Illustrator, and let's do a file open. Let's go ahead to your lessons that you've downloaded. Let's go ahead and grab number 1, and let's grab that Start 1 file and say open. Let's do a file save as. Let's change it to first initial last name underscore Adobe Illustrator Classroom in a Book Chapter 1. And I'm in my lesson 1 folder, so I'm going to push save. So I'm good to go there. Let's go ahead and make sure and hit an OK. We're all in the same workspace. Let's go to Window, come down here to Workspace, and make sure we're in Reset Essentials. So we're all in exactly the same place. And we're going to go ahead and make sure we can see the whole thing. So Window, and we want a review. We want a fit artboard window so we can see the whole thing. And that artboard is that area that contains that artwork that you'll be working on. Think of it as your paper or your poster, whatever it is you're working on. So now we're going to go ahead and look at the workspace itself. So when we're in the workspace, we've got the application bar. So that's this part at the top. It might look a little bit different if you are on a Mac, and you have your panels. Anything is on these little tabs is considered a panel. On the left-hand side, you have your toolbar, and down here you have the window itself. Down here you have your status bar, which helps you know how much are you zoomed in, which artboard are you on. Depends on what you're working on. So let's go ahead and get to know that toolbar. Let's grab the selection tool over in the toolbar. And let's go ahead and notice when you hover over, you will get those little tool tips, which can help quite a bit. Let's come down until we've got the direct selection here. So we can actually press and hold, and we can group the selection tools together. So we can press and hold it. We group selection tools. So now we can add another thing. So let's go ahead and anytime you've got one of these little tiny triangles over here in the corner means that there are more tools hidden underneath. Now, Illustrator is unique in that it actually hides some of its additional tools, does not have them all available at the same time. So let's go ahead and look at your rectangle. You see you can close it. You can go ahead and hit escape to make it go away. You can actually double click on this arrow up here at the top and make it so you've got a 2-column versus a 1-column toolbar. I like 1 column, but I'm working on a big screen. Sometimes if you're working on a smaller screen, you might want to have that smaller one. Depends on what you're interested in. You can also drag these toolbars out, so you can move them other places, and you can dock them again. To dock it, now we have a floating toolbar. You can actually close it, which sometimes we accidentally close it. We don't necessarily want. So let's go ahead and grab it until we get that blue line here at the top. There we go. And now it's back on the side where it used to be. So anytime you're trying to figure out where your tools went, you can always do the reset of your reset your workspace. That'll make everything come back. And sometimes that's the easiest way to do it. All right, let's go ahead and add an extra tool to our toolbar. So let's go to our toolbar here at the bottom. If you do the ellipse, we've got more tools. So if they are grayed out, it means those tools are already showing in the toolbar. Otherwise, you could go ahead and add some of those. So let's go ahead and add a tool. Let's go ahead and grab the Shaper tool down here towards the bottom. I'm going to grab that Shaper tool, and I'm going to drag it onto the rectangle. So I'm going to grab that Shaper, mine's on an ellipse right now, and put it in the rectangle. So now when I look at, I'm going to go ahead and escape and close that panel. Close it. Doesn't want to escape. Okay, let's go ahead here. So now if I go into where my rectangle was, you can see I've now had that Shaper tool. And if I want to take that Shaper tool back off, all I have to do is hit the More button, grab that shaper tool, and let's go ahead and come on, drag it back in. So that's how you go ahead and change those different types of tools. All right, so let's go ahead and go to the right-hand side to the Properties panel. The Properties panel, you can make bigger or smaller depending on what you're working on. So you should be able to grab the sides. So let's go ahead with our selection tool and grab, say, the moon. So when you have a certain element selected, this Properties panel is going to change depending on what you're working on. So let's go ahead and grab that moon. And since we're here, let's go ahead and change it up a little bit. So right here we've got the word opacity. Anytime you have a word that's underlined means there's something you can change. So let's grab opacity and let's go ahead and just take that down to like 50%. So now you can see it's kind of making it more opaque so that dark is coming up through the background. So we've done something there. All right, let's go to layers. Layers goes ahead and lets you decide which layer you're working on. So if you've worked with Photoshop at all, you're kind of familiar with layers. And it makes it a little bit easier, especially when we've got a lot of items stacked on top of each other, to use that layers panel. Once again, you can take and dock and undock those elements. Makes your life a little bit easier. Maybe the letters and stuff are too small on your interface, so you want to change it. So if you're on a Mac, you need to go to the little apple in the corner. If you're on a PC, I'm going to go to Edit and come down here to Preferences. In Preferences, I want to go ahead and go to User Interface. So in User Interface, it's going to allow me to change things. If I want to make it bigger, I'm going to go ahead and make it larger. And that will allow me to see my elements a little bit larger, depending on what you're on. I've got to restart my application to make it work. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes to save. And it's going to close. I'm just going to open back up again. And it's on its way to opening back up again. And it should be much larger. Oh, I got to start it. Should be much larger this time when I see the different parts of the workspace. So that can definitely work in our favor. I'm not sure what this one is. Let's give it a second while it reloads. So in the meantime, when you're switching, working in workspaces, you've got a few different options for how you're going to have windows open, similar to a Photoshop. So it makes it a little bit easier for you to work within. All right, so now look at it. It's a whole lot bigger and you can probably see the video a lot better. So I'm going to leave mine as big. If you don't like it, go back into your edit, go back to your edit preferences and reset that user interface. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and reopen my document I was just working on. So I'm going to go back into my lesson 1, grab that Danielle Oser and open. And it should be opening. All right, so you can see everything's a lot larger now as far as the tools. And I can actually see things a little bit better. And hopefully you can too on your end of the video. So if you wanted to change the workspace, let's go ahead and look at switching the workspace. You can actually customize those to make it so something you want. You can click that Workspace Switcher, which is this one right here at the top, which will allow you to change to different ones. So let's go ahead and change it to Layout instead. And you see with Layout, you're going to get slightly different types of tools popping up and a slightly different view. So depending on what you're working on, sometimes you want certain things to be in a certain area. So let's go ahead and I don't necessarily want this one. So I'm going to come back here and come back down here to Essentials and go back to, this is the one we work in most of the time. So it will save any changes that we've got. So let's go ahead, go to Window and Artboards. And go ahead and open up that Artboards panel. And I want to go ahead and drag that into my Properties panel. So let's go ahead and move it right up here. So now I can get to my artboards. I'm going to close that one. So I can actually save this workspace as my own. So maybe I want to go into Window and come down to Workspace And I want to do new workspace. And I'm going to name this my workspace and say OK. So now when I want to change, I can go into and have my workspace as an option. So I can go to Essentials. It's going to switch it. Then I can go back into my workspace, and it's going to go ahead and remember where we were. So let's go ahead and reset that Essentials. So Essentials and reset Essentials. It's going to make that Artboards go away. So it's back where it used to be. Now we do my workspace, and we're going to see where we get Artboards back up here. So it's a nice way, especially if you use certain tools frequently, to not have to drag them all back out again. Let's go ahead and go back in that Essentials for us. Alrighty. Now we can go ahead and change the view of the artwork. We can go ahead and grab our zoom tool. Our zoom tool, you can see if you just pick it, it'll give you the plus, and you can zoom in. If you want to zoom out, we can go ahead and do view. We can do view and zoom in, zoom out. Let's go ahead and zoom out. You can also do some key commands. So maybe you want to drag. So if I drag from left to right, it's going to zoom in. If I drag from right to left, it's going to go ahead and zoom out for me. I can also do what's called panning. So I can move within a document. So you can, instead of having to use your on the sides here, you can actually just hold the space bar down. It's going to turn into a hand, and it's going to let you grab that artwork and then switch you back to the tool that you were on. So that makes the work a little bit better. Sometimes you're going to have multiple artboards, so you can go down here to the bottom, Artboard Navigation. This one only has one artboard. So let's go ahead and look at one that's got two. Let's go File and Open. Let's go ahead and grab Start To and Open. So now you can see we've got a couple different artboards here. I'm going to do a View and a Fit Artboard in Windows, so you can see just one, or I can do View and Fit All in Windows, so I can see all of my artboards. I can also go down here to the bottom. I can change to which artboard I want to work with. So it makes it so you can actually create a number of different elements without having to have multiple documents open. All right, so you can also go to your window and artboards, and you can choose your which one you're going to work on that way. All right, so let's go ahead and arrange some documents. Let's go ahead and click that L1 Start document. So this was our Start document. Let's go ahead and drag that tab directly onto the L2. So I'm going to grab that tab and drag it directly onto the L2. And so now I should have, oh yeah, we just have different tab order. So you can just change the tabs depending on how you're using them. So let's go Window. I'm going to close this artboard. Window, and let's go Arrange and Tile. And Tile will allow me to see different things in the windows. So let's go ahead and do a View, Fit Artboard in Window. And let's come over to this tab as well and do a View, Fit Artboard in Window. So now I can see both of those side by side. And you can easily drag, with my selection tool, I can easily drag that artwork from one element into another. I'm going to do a Command Z and undo that. All right, you also have an option to arrange your documents. So you've got an Arrange Documents in the application bar. It's just up here. So this will allow you to really easily, instead of having to go through and do multiple things, you can really easily just choose those arranged that way. So that's basically what we're going to do for this assignment. We're not going to do a whole lot. Just really want you to get to see the different types of tools and how they work. So we're not going to package. We're not going to do anything. This one's not for points. But if you do have confusion about where something is, go ahead and take a peek at this one again. And that's all for lesson number 1.